9 months from now, are we going to be able to talk about the Big Ten as the best conference in college football? That has certainly not been a topic that we've been able to address for years and years and years and years and years. And I thought last offseason going into the 2022 season, maybe the Big Ten could make a push as best conference in college football. Did not work out. The SEC is still king, and it's not even close. It's not debatable. Might be closer than a lot of people believe. I'm sure it is, but it's not debatable. Therefore, we're going to look at big non-conference games in the Big Ten for 2023. Welcome into the voice of college football. We come your way each and every day. Some of you may say, well, you're not here every day. Well, check out all the team channels. We are delivering content and typically live content each and every day. Check out the 25 team channels. And for you Big Ten fans, of course, that means Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, Nebraska, Iowa. I don't think I missed anyone. So we will leave the link in the live chat to take your calls today. We could be hearing from a number of Big Ten media members as well. So please join us. Our next live show is coming up later tonight. We've got USC Live with Matt Zemek. Tim's going to fill in for me. We got Matt Zemek over on the USC channel. That's at 11 Eastern and 8 Pacific every Monday night. Thank you for being flexible today. Typically, our Big Ten live show, the Big Ten live show, is at 6 Eastern on Mondays. We wanted to go a few hours early based on scheduling situations. All right. Let's dive into those non-conference games. But before we do, I want to remind everyone that we've got an Amazon link that is in the description section of all the videos. All the videos, the Amazon link is right there. It's in caps. It's easy to grab. And you can go right to it. You do not have to purchase the product that is there. Shop, do whatever you want on Amazon. Just please use our link. Therefore, we get a cut from Amazon, a little cut from Amazon, and you help us grow the channel. Patreon, Discord. Wow, if you want to talk college football, now this is the time to do it, as we are in the midst of spring practice across college football. Of course, the first spring game of note. Sorry, Missouri fans, 2 weeks ago, but the first game of note is coming up this Saturday, and we will have a Michigan watch party for the Michigan spring game. So here's the deal on the Michigan spring game. We're going to watch that over on Patreon and expect future offerings on Patreon to involve watch parties, because what we can do there is we can check out video of previous games. We can dissect the film. We can do watch parties, and we don't have an issue with YouTube and copyright. So we can do that on Patreon with a private link over there. So the big thing and the good thing for all of you is that our Michigan Spring Game Watch Party is available to everyone. So we're going to do that again over on Patreon. However, we're going to make that video link available to everyone. We will leave it here on the main channel. We'll leave it on all the Big Ten channels and, of course, the Michigan channel. Again, it's the Michigan Spring Game Watch Party right here at the Voice of College Football, April 1st. This is no April Fool's joke. We are doing a watch party, and then we're going to go live to take your comments and your questions and your calls directly after the Michigan game. Forewarning, it's a spring game. So the talk is going to be better than the football. The talk is going to be more exciting and more enthralling than the football ever will. It's a spring game. I get excited for the spring games. I get fooled every year. The dearth of lack of football means that I get excited and ready to watch some football, and then quickly remember this is not football. It's practice. But we can still get excited about talking about football and actually seeing guys run around and catch passes in front of us. Please join the show. I'm dropping the link in the chat as we speak, and I am reminded that I did not send the link out to our media folks, so I will do that in just a minute as well. But again, the Michigan Watch Party for the spring game, April 1st at 3 Eastern. That should be a good time. Going to make the link available both here on the main channel and the various Big Ten channels as well. Before I get started on these non-conference games and take your calls, we've got some shout outs. If you've seen me argue with our guy Jason Parker on Florida State live, and when I say argue, I mean that in a very friendly sort of way. We have a good time debating on various topics, but I have made it a rule not to use the term shout out. I will stop short of calling that a term that I hate. That's a little strong. But I've refrained from using the term shout out, but I got no other term to use for this one. So we're going to go out with the shout out. So we've got a number of new YouTube members. So we opened up the YouTube memberships last week, I believe, and we've got some YouTube members. And of course, we're going to deliver on the membership, of course. So for these fine folks right here, thank you so much for being a new YouTube member to the Your Voice tier. Thank you out there to Adam Beast Media, Tim Prangley, Joey Foster, Badge, Bournemouth, I believe. Jason O and DS are all YouTube members, and I hope that you're seeing us right now. Thank you so much for your YouTube membership. Of course, you can see all the benefits that are provided on the Your Voice. This is the voice of college football. It's Your Voice tier. And look at this, our very first undisputed national champion. So you know that we hold dear to evaluating national championships here at the Voice of College Football. I am very big on evaluating the awarding and the lack of justice that has been served throughout college football history in awarding national championships. So we review them regularly, and we will do that during the month of May. We are going to be reviewing national championships. So our second tier on our YouTube memberships, undisputed national champion. You get to claim a national championship undisputed. You are an undisputed national champion, and the very first is Craig Cope. So Craig, thank you so much for joining us here. And we are providing exclusive content for you, Craig, very soon. Hang on. We officially start with our YouTube memberships on April 1st, and we are going to provide you with some exclusive content that you will be extremely elated to receive. So again, check us out on the YouTube memberships and also on Patreon. So I want to make it very clear, as we did when we announced all this last week, that for our Patreon members, nothing changes. Nothing changes at all unless you want to upgrade actually your membership at $5 per month. I want to make it $4.99, but Patreon is very difficult to change. I want to make that $4.99. So your $5 membership per month is exactly the same, if not better. It's going to be upgraded in that you're going to be receiving exclusive content. So look out for that. Hope you've joined us on the current series that we're running. We're breaking down television ratings across college football. Of course, the Pac-12 is front and center. Sorry to use that word, that term. It's a bad word, I know, on this Big 12 or Big 10. I did it again. Now I just spewed out another bad word, Big 12. I guess I said the SEC before, didn't I? Okay, on this, the Big 10 live show. But everything involving college football right now swirling and centering around that Pac-12 media deal that is supposed to be just a few weeks ago or a few weeks away. A few weeks ago, we were talking about it being a few weeks away, and it's not here. So we shall see about the Pac-12. But in addition to that, in reviewing what the Pac-12 is dealing with, we've produced a lot of good live streams and videos. Check those out in the last few weeks involving the Pac-12 and what are some of the major issues there. Maybe the major issue is nobody watches the games. We dealt with the TV ratings. Check out that video. We just released that. I believe that would have been on Friday. And then over the weekend, we released another video where we broke down Big 12 TV ratings. So those two are connected in a very interesting way, in that, of course, the four corner schools in the Pac-12, very attractive to the Big 12, and the Big 12 TV ratings we reviewed with the four newcomers coming on board, and how are they going to impact the Big 12, Cincinnati, Houston, BYU, and UCF. We just released our video on the ACC. Check that out. I think it's great conversation. It is not exhaustive in any way, very comprehensive, but not completely exhaustive. Otherwise, I'd be producing 3-hour videos. So a lot of people have a lot of questions. They will be answered involving our conference TV ratings breakdown. We will hit the SEC and the Big Ten. Then we will do a huge summary video in which we break down all the conferences against each other and size them up. Big Ten fans, I think you're going to be awfully, awfully happy about that. Looking at the Big Ten television ratings, they're mighty impressive. Mighty impressive. I've left the link in the chat. Please call the show. We appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. So typically, yes, Monday at 6 Eastern time. But today we had to change the schedule. So we're here at 4. I leave at 6. John Diadamo will take over for me at 6 Eastern. So be kind to him. And continue to talk Big Ten football. I'm going to send out the link to all of you again, and then also to our fine media folks who represent the Big Ten. Of course, most of them focused in previous weeks on basketball, but the basketball performance for the Big Ten, not stellar in the postseason. Somewhat reminds me of the Big Ten in the college football playoffs this past year. Although, hey, that could be explained to a certain extent. I am searching for our Big Ten media list here. There we go. All right. The Big Ten in 2022 fared okay in non-conference play. The record for the Big Ten was actually better than the performance because during the regular season, Ohio State beat Notre Dame. Ohio State beat Notre Dame. That's all that we could discuss concerning the Big Ten doing anything outside the conference. Michigan didn't play anyone. Maryland did not play anyone. They beat SMU. Okay, great. Indiana got pummeled by Cincinnati. Michigan State got pummeled by Washington. That's going to be my word of the show. Pummeled. Minnesota did not get pummeled by anyone, but they didn't play anyone. Minnesota typically doesn't play anyone. They've had an embarrassing non-conference schedule most seasons. Minnesota, be better, do better, and you are starting here in 2023. We see that. Wisconsin lost as a 17-point favorite to Washington State at home. Paul Chris may still have a job if Wisconsin wins that game. They should have won the game. They dominated statistically. They lost. That's all that counts. Iowa lost to a bad Iowa State team. Good defense, bad team. An Iowa State team that went 2-7 in the Big 12, finished in last place. Iowa came this close to going to the Big Ten championship game, and they lost to Iowa State. They scored 7 points. Well, of course they scored 7 points. Iowa scored 7 points every week, but they lost the game. Of course, Nebraska lost its non-conference game. Well, Nebraska is losing to everyone every week. So they're going to have to change that. They've got a capable head coach this year. So I'm just basically noting that no one won anything out of conference during the regular season last year, except for Ohio State, and that was not a monumental win. They beat a good Notre Dame team. Yes, Minnesota won a non-conference game against Colorado. Rutgers beat Boston College. That was probably the second best win. Penn State beat Auburn. Auburn was bad. So not necessarily an issue with most of the scheduling, but it was more just some teams were down. Had an issue with the Michigan situation, of course. They canceled against UCLA. Why? I don't know. Still have yet to really get that figured out. But anyway, Michigan again this season plays no one. So as I go through the non-conference games for the Big Ten, and boy, we're giving a lot of airtime to Mr. Cope here. Craig, thank you so much once again for being our first undisputed national champion. Thank you so much for that. I want to see your comments. See if you guys are getting a bit disgruntled about. Yes, Jason knows Michigan scared of UCLA. All right. Well, it got me to thinking also, when is the last time Michigan won an important non-conference game? And exploring with Ben's telling us more than anything that I can utter. Much more important stuff right here, because you get the merch. I should be donning one of my famed jackets over here. Let's do that. I'm not cold though. It's kind of chilly outside, rainy, gloomy, one of those kind of days after a beautiful Sunday here in the Buckeye State. But yeah, bit gloomy and cold today. I'll throw the jacket on. It's good advertising. Thanks for the reminder there, Ben. Go to our link right there. Check out the merch, the gear. But Big Ten fans, when is the last time your team won either an important or a non-conference game against a good opponent? Michigan. Okay, Michigan fans, here we go. Notre Dame was decent in 2019. Was that important? It's Notre Dame. It's always important. It's Notre Dame. They were good. They weren't great. They were okay. Would they go 9-4? So Michigan beat Notre Dame in 2019. If we go before that, Michigan, they beat Florida. How good was Florida? That was Dan Mullen's first team, right? Florida was decent that year. They went 10-3. They finished fringe top 10. So Michigan won that game out of conference in 2017. Wow. 2016. Did they beat Notre Dame that year? 2016, what was their non-conference game? 2015, the bowl game against Florida. Okay, so we're looking at 2 Florida wins. 2 wins over Florida by Michigan under Jim Harbaugh and Notre Dame. Losses? Well, they lost to Florida State in the Orange Bowl. They lost to South Carolina in the Outback Bowl. I'm going to have to use 2 hands here pretty soon, counting up Michigan postseason losses. Lost to Florida. Lost to Alabama. Didn't play anyone in 2020. Lost to Georgia. Lost to TCU. Lost out of conference games to Notre Dame. Lost to anybody else out of conference? Well, didn't play anyone the last 2 years. Didn't play anyone in 2020. Nobody did. 2019, yeah, Notre Dame. Notre Dame, the last big win for Michigan. We'll seal it right there. Although I'm going to guess that some folks are going to say that was not a big game. So who else do we have represented here in the chat? We've got, of course, our buddy Connor Johnson from the Pac-12 and Oregon State. Good to see him. But I was reviewing the non-conference games. Okay, Ohio State, Notre Dame. Buckeyes beat them last year. Now they got to beat them with Sam Hartman in South Bend. Difficult assignment for the Buckeyes, although our buddy Kevin Noon on our Ohio State live show made a pretty bold statement a couple weeks ago that Ohio State's going to just run them over. 3 touchdowns or so. Just run them over. We shall see. Michigan State gets the return trip from Washington. That was an embarrassing game for the Big Ten and Michigan State until we found out that Michigan State really wasn't that good. They were pretty lousy, pretty bad. 3 wins in the Big Ten. And Washington was pretty stellar with Michael Penix and a good defense and athletes, and won 11 games. So didn't turn out to be a bad loss for the Big Ten. But at the time of the game, it's funny that Michigan State was a top 10 team and Washington was not ranked, and then completely flipped by the end of the year. Penn State's got a game against West Virginia. Don't know how you feel about that. It would be great to see Penn State play somebody in their weight class for a non-conference game. Again, not their fault. They're scheduling one substantial Power 5 team, but West Virginia down. Penn State looks to have a big, huge, enormous year. Check out our Penn State videos that we cut last week with our buddies Tim and Marty from Black Shoe Diaries. Check those out over on the Penn State channel. I did post the defensive video here on the main channel. Nobody's watched it, so check that one out. Everybody just wants to see realignment videos. So check out our video on the Penn State defense and some other Penn State items of note. But Penn State's got a game against West Virginia, Happy Valley, week 1, Iowa State, of course. Okay, I like this one. Minnesota goes to North Carolina. So Minnesota finally playing somebody outside the conference, and it's a good one. Minnesota, North Carolina. That might be my favorite non-conference game involving a Big Ten team this year. Illinois takes on Kansas. Okay. Brad Bielema and his team took on Virginia, blasted them last year outside the conference. Indiana and Louisville, that might be a little bit too much for the Hoosiers. We shall see. They've got to be much improved. They've got 17 transfers coming in. Indiana, Louisville, they play in Indianapolis. Maryland played no one last year. SMU was their big game. They've got Virginia. Virginia was one of the worst teams in the country in the Power 5 last year. No Brennan Armstrong. He has moved on to NC State. Northwestern continues to be adamant about its series with Duke. Northwestern is just these two have signed something that has attached them at the hip. Northwestern and Duke play once again, and Northwestern loses this game almost every year. And they lost to everybody, period, the last 2 years. And now they're taking on Duke on the road. The really good Northwestern running back, Evan Hull, was plunging into the end zone for what could have been the game-tying touchdown last season. He fumbled into the end zone and out of the end zone, and that lost the game for Northwestern, so they take another shot at Duke this year. Intriguing game in Boulder. Colorado hosting Nebraska, of course. We've got that one to look forward to with a competent coach this year at Nebraska, Matt Rule, taking on Neon Deion Sanders. Look at Purdue. Look at the Purdue schedule. And Ryan Walters in a difficult position here because he loses the second best quarterback in the conference. He loses all of his offensive weapons from the receiving standpoint. Payne Durham, maybe the best tight end in the conference. He loses Charlie Jones, one of the best wide receivers in the conference, and of course his quarterback. And you've got Purdue taking on 3 difficult non-conference games. Give it up for Purdue. Look at this schedule. They've got Fresno State. They go to Blacksburg to take on Virginia Tech, and they've got a game against Syracuse. And if you saw the Syracuse-Purdue game last year, that was one of the most entertaining in college football. Loved that game. Was not on my radar, but I watched the fourth quarter, and that was one of the most fun games in college football last year. And now Syracuse heads to Purdue to take on the Boilers. So Purdue with no gimmies in the non-conference schedule. Fresno State, Virginia Tech, and Syracuse. Wisconsin's got to make amends for an upset loss that we talked about a few minutes ago against Washington State. This time, Wisconsin and Luke Fickell travel to Pullman to take on Wazoo. Virginia Tech has another game against the Big Ten as they go to Rutgers. And, of course, Rutgers had a win against BC last year. And then I've got here on my notes, if you can see that there, I've got Michigan. So I've got everyone in the Big Ten listed here and all their big non-conference games. All the big non-conference games. Notre Dame, Washington, West Virginia, Iowa State, North Carolina, Kansas, Louisville, all those teams. And then I've got Michigan, and I've got a bunch of question marks there. Who does Michigan play? No one. No one. And then I've got a bunch of question marks next to that dirty 3-letter word, SEC. So the Big Ten is playing 13 games against Power 5 opponents. And of course, they play 3 non-conference games, 14 teams. They play 42 non-conference games, and they can't find a way to play an SEC team. This is what's wrong with college football scheduling. It's a disaster. It makes no sense. It doesn't serve the fans in any such way. Just like everything else in college football, where the conferences decide, they're autonomous, they get to do what they want, they decide everything. When it comes to non-conference scheduling, the teams, the individual schools, the football programs are autonomous, and they get to schedule whatever they want. There is no reason why there should be, in the span of 42 non-conference games in the Big Ten and 56 in the SEC, they got 14 teams at 4 non-conference games per team, 56 non-conference games for the SEC, 56 non-conference games, and you're going to play none against the Big Ten. We had one last year, Penn State and Auburn. We probably had none the year before. Well, yeah, I'd have to go year to year, but it's basically each conference to the other conference is basically in the witness protection program until the postseason hits. They've been good, the SEC and the Big Ten, about scheduling bowl tie-ins, Gator Bowl, Citrus Bowl, Outback Bowl, for years and years and years and years, especially the Citrus and the Outback, whatever they call that now, ReliaQuest. But in terms of conference scheduling during the regular season, this should not take place. This sounds like a video idea right here, where I can just rant and rail and go off on both the SEC and the Big Ten. They're supposed to be the major conferences. They're supposed to be controlling the sport. They are the marquee brands, and their scheduling sucks. It's horrible. It's atrocious. But they have no incentive. So college football, once again, this is just another example, is broken. It's broken. All in all, the Big Ten will be playing 3 games against the Big 12, 3 against the Pac-12. So the Big 12 opponents are, again, West Virginia, Iowa State, and Kansas. And then the 3 out of the Pac-12, of course, would be Colorado and Washington State. And Washington, the Big Ten was able to schedule 7 games against the ACC, 7, and I have no issue with that if they would schedule 7 games against the SEC. 7 games against the ACC, 0 against the SEC. And if you look at it from the ACC's perspective, if they're scheduling 7 against the Big Ten, they are scheduling at least, they've got Georgia Tech, Clemson, South Carolina. They have the other Florida State game and the Kentucky-Louisville game. So that's 4 every year. I know that Miami's playing Texas A&M. That's 5. LSU is playing Florida State. There's 6. So just off the top of my head, the ACC, credit the ACC, playing the Big Ten 7 times. And also playing the SEC 6 times. Big Ten, pathetic. Playing the ACC 7 times, playing the SEC 0. Pathetic. It's just awful. It's awful. We've got Cole here. Cole, thank you so much for the super chat contribution. Cole asks, what's Minnesota looking like this year? Well, we'll have to review their running back situation, losing one of the best in the history of the conference. And I actually think that Tanner Morgan moving on, I can't imagine that he's going to be an NFL prospect in any such way. I would think that maybe he gets invited to a camp and cut quickly, but that Aiden Calcabanis, I believe, is a better passing quarterback. Inexperienced, but he got some valuable playing time down the stretch last season. Minnesota fielded one of the best defenses in the Big Ten. They lost little off that defense. We'll do a deeper dive on Minnesota coming up, but thank you so much, Cole. I know that you're extremely interested in Minnesota, as you should be, as division opponents. And our warning goes out to all the Big Ten Western Division teams that, of course, this may be your final year to be relevant in the conference or upgrade your football program, like Wisconsin has attempted to do in bringing in Luke Fickell. Great job by Wisconsin. They are looking into the future, but man, with USC, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State lined up, those spots in the Big Ten championship game are going to be difficult to come by. So, Cole, thank you so much for the question. And I know Cole is even more invested in the Golden Gophers because that is an opening Thursday night game with Minnesota taking on Nebraska. John, thanks for being here. John is a new member. We're up to 8. John, thank you so much for that. We appreciate you, John. John's going to be taking over the hosting here at 6 Eastern. We hope everybody was flexible in their timing as we move the show up to 4 Eastern today. We're typically here every Monday to talk Big Ten football live with you at 6 Eastern. So thanks for being here. Hopefully you are subscribed and hit that bell for the notifications to know when we go live. We've got a USC show coming up with Tim and Matt. They will take over tonight at 11 Eastern. Exploring with Ben, he's got the pretty green attached to his name, so that means good things as well. Exploring with Ben, thank you so much for your contribution as well. I will leave the call-in line in the chat again. So check it out there. Sports Talk 101's here. Hit the thumbs up, everyone, and hit the notifications and subscribe to the channel. Antoine, good to see you here. See everybody talking stuff about playing non-conference games with these crazy pods coming up. I bet they're going to want to reach for a good, nice, delicious cupcake. Well, Michigan's filled up on cupcakes already. So I don't know how many cupcakes are left. Michigan has taken way too many cupcakes for themselves. Michigan is hoarding the cupcakes. Michigan has been a glutton on the cupcakes. So I get that, Antoine. I don't fault Michigan for its easy schedules. I fault the structure of college football doesn't make sense and is not fair and equitable. Cole made the comment here, I don't ever remember the last time Nebraska played an SEC school. Well, a lot of SEC schools, as you know, Cole, in bowl games. Tennessee was the last bowl game, if we can remember that far back, when Tennessee took on Nebraska in the 2016 Music City Bowl. But in terms of scheduling a non-conference game against an SEC team, you are right about that, Cole. I cannot come up with one there. Yes, Erica, I have to use that word. It's one of my favorite words, and it's been pathetic. Badger and Bournemouth, appreciate you being here. Wisconsin has played LSU twice and Alabama in the regular season over the last 8 years. Good job, Wisconsin. Yes, I don't have any personal vendetta against Wisconsin, because there have been some light years for Wisconsin scheduling, but for the most part, yes, the home and home or neutral site against LSU. That was a fun back and forth. Wisconsin actually should have won both of those games. They blew the one game and got some bad calls in the one game where Melvin Gordon went off against LSU, but of course they won the game at Lambeau. And then they played Alabama well into the fourth quarter, but that's a difficult one right there. I think they played Bama in 2015, one of Bama's typical national championship runs. So they had to take on Derrick Henry and company. So yes, Wisconsin. Other than that, yeah, the couple Washington State games. They used to play Arizona State a little bit. BYU, they went home and home with them here in the last 6 or 7 years. So Wisconsin's been pretty reputable when it comes to that. All right. Jason, do you really want to go at this one here? Who does Georgia play again this year? So, yes, Georgia does not have a difficult non-conference schedule. However, they do play Georgia Tech. Is Michigan playing anybody close to Georgia Tech? No. So they do play a Power 5 opponent. So there you go. So we can stop right there. And seems to me that Michigan or Georgia played a pretty good Oregon team last year. So the Georgia scheduling, this has to be year after year after year. There has to be consecutive years at least before I'm going to rail on somebody's schedule. But something happened. Well, the thing that happened with, so if I'm understanding this correctly, Michigan made the decision to lose UCLA off the schedules. There was a decision made by the SEC with Georgia, Oklahoma, with Oklahoma coming into the league and the league not knowing what it's going to do with scheduling. Georgia scheduled Oklahoma. Oklahoma was taken off of Georgia's schedule. So there is that. LBC Trojan, good to see Rick here. He is giving a little clarity what we were talking about earlier. Out of conference bowl record for Michigan under Harbaugh. We know the bowl record has been abysmal. Include Notre Dame and BYU. They did beat BYU with, I don't think Zach Wilson was the quarterback. No, that was before Zach Wilson. But yeah, Michigan's been beating up on these group of 5 teams, as we see from LBC Trojan. But the out of conference performance by Michigan under Harbaugh has been awful. Cole is asking whether Nebraska is a blue blood. Okay. Sorry, Cole, to divert from blue blood. That's a whole thing. Blue blood, elite, semantics. If you want my quick take on it, blue blood, basically, it's a term from what? The British Empire, I believe. Basically means, you cut yourself, you bleed blue because you've got royal blood. That goes back to the origins of college football, if you want to be technical about it. If you want to be truly technical about it, I don't know if any of these teams outside of like Notre Dame and Michigan are blue bloods. They would be the only blue bloods. But if you want to be a little bit more reasonable about it, I think we know who the blue bloods are. Like Clemson can never be a blue blood if you want to be technical about it, because they were not decades ago, an elite program. And then I guess you can never lose blue blood status regardless of how bad you become. Now, elite is different. I give a lot more relevance to being elite rather than being a blue blood. But let's get back to Jason here. Okay, Jason. Now, come on here. Okay. First of all, Georgia basically has to play Georgia Tech. It's just a rivalry that's going to be played every year. So Georgia cannot control how good or bad Georgia Tech is. Secondly, let's understand, unless you're like 11 years old, you know that Georgia Tech has been a quality football program not long ago. Do we really need to go through a lesson on college football, recent, very recent college football history to know that Georgia Tech has been extremely strong recently? They hired one underachieving coach, one bad coach, Jeff Collins. Before that, Georgia Tech was winning 7, 8, 9 games a year. Georgia Tech was appearing in ACC championship games on a regular basis, as much as anybody not named Florida State, Virginia Tech. So an Orange Bowl win, another Orange Bowl appearance just since 2010. So yes, that's when, to answer your question, that's when Georgia Tech has been good. Thank you, Michael. Michael reminding us about recruiting. Michael Campbell, thank you for being here. We've got Notre Dame fans here. We've got Oregon State fans in the Big Ten show. I like that. So we did have some pickups on the recruiting trail to run down. Ohio State interior offensive lineman Devontae Armstrong from in-state, 23rd rated interior offensive lineman. He's the 13th rated player in the state of Ohio. He's a number 353 overall. Devontae Armstrong, most recent commit to Ohio State, and I believe that just came down today. Minnesota picked up some wide receivers. Dallas Sims, not rated, out of Clearwater, and also Corey Smith from Indiana, the 103rd rated wide receiver in the country. That's about where Minnesota, of course, signs players. Then they've got to coach them up. The number 800th player in the country, Corey Smith out of Indiana, signs with Minnesota or commits to Minnesota. Of course, the signing period doesn't start until the middle Wednesday of December. Penn State tight end Luke Reynolds out of Connecticut, 44th rated player at his position. 8th rated player in Connecticut, number 948 overall. Penn State gets a tight end in the last couple of days. Purdue gets a offensive lineman out of Carroll, Ohio, Jaden Ball, 75th rated offensive lineman. That's it, interior offensive lineman. And going back to March 22nd, Ben Roebuck out of Lakewood, Ohio, the latest from the state of Ohio to sign or again commit to Michigan. 31st rated offensive tackle in the country, number 15 in the state of Ohio, number 456. So that makes it, I believe, 5 commits out of the state of Ohio who have committed to Michigan. So think about this. Since Harbaugh took over at Michigan in 2015, we ran these numbers the other day. Ohio State has signed 6 Michigan players, 65 from Ohio. So there's an 11-to-1 ratio of players that Ohio State prefers in the state of Ohio over the state of Michigan, while Michigan has just a 2-to-1 ratio. They have signed 18 Ohio players, but only 11 in the last 6 years. So this is an aberration. So this is either an aberration or it's the beginning of a trend of Harbaugh coming into the Buckeye State and taking over and taking in some really good players. So, Ohio State fans, are you concerned? I would be concerned. As Jason is telling us there, Michigan has signed. Well, they have not signed. So let's back off on the term signed because that's not accurate. They have received commitments from 4 Ohio players and Ohio State just 2. Yeah, so that's not typical. That has not been typical for a long, long time, since probably the early 90s. You're right, Jason. They probably will sign. They most likely will sign. Yes, as John is pointing out, it's good to see some Penn State fandom there in the chat. Joey, thank you so much for the contribution. We appreciate you. We've got a Penn State channel, Joey, if you're aware. We've got a Penn State channel, and we bring on Tim and Marty from Black Shoe Diaries on a regular basis to talk about Penn State football. Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan should be quite a series of games this year between those 3. Truth is asking. There's far too few of that in this day and age, right? Truth says, Mark, you've documented the blue bloods of college football. Who are the college basketball blue bloods? Well, I would consider those to be Kentucky, North Carolina, Duke, Kansas, UCLA, Indiana, right? I think that's your order. I think that's even easier to run down than the football blue bloods. Yeah, so as international Matt is letting us know here, it will be interesting to see how many of the recruits who came to Lincoln this past weekend end up signing. It could be boom or bust. So the boom or bust, I believe, is going to all start with and end with one Dylan Raiola. So the Nebraska quarterback, would-be quarterback from Arizona, of course, has legacy roots to Nebraska, and he's looking at Georgia, USC, and Nebraska. And apparently, based on what I know, most of those recruits that showed up, 4 and 5 stars, like the biggest slew of recruits that have visited Nebraska in one weekend in 20 years are mostly tied to Dylan Raiola. So when you say boom or bust, I think it's most of that, not all of it, but most of that recruiting haul is tied to Dylan Raiola. They get him, then there are followers. They don't get him, then they run off to Penn State and Michigan and Notre Dame and wherever else. Jason, I got to think that Penn State fans are banking on Drew Aller being better than Sean Clifford. And I defended Sean Clifford to the hilt, but Drew Aller should be beyond Sean Clifford. Should be. You can call the show. We dropped the link in the live chat. Here we go again. And also keep in mind that we've got a offering of Big Ten live streams every week. Ohio State Wednesday at 11 Eastern. And then we've got Michigan at 5. We've got Iowa tomorrow, Tuesday at 5:30 Eastern, followed by Nebraska at 7 Eastern. Okay, running through transfer portal additions for all the teams in the Big Ten Eastern Division. Maryland has 9 new players coming in. Of course, they've got 2 pretty well publicized coaches coming in that haven't had such a strong performance in recent years, and Kevin Sumlin and Josh Gaddis, but that's another story. It's Caden Prather, the wide receiver from West Virginia. Caden Prather, good player, signing with Maryland. And then they also picked up a really talented player who's done nothing at the collegiate level or very little in Avante Williams, the safety out of Miami, who was a top 50 prospect coming out of high school. So Maryland with 9 transfer portal additions, including Prather, West Virginia, Williams, Miami. Let me know if anybody else stands out to you in terms of Maryland's transfer portal additions. And of course, we are just about a little over a month away from the end of spring practice, the end of all the spring games, and then we will have another big lot of transfer portal discussion because, hey, a lot of coaches are going to be talking to a lot of players following spring practice and letting them know where they stand. And a lot of players are not going to like that discussion and are going to be looking for greener pastures. So I believe May 1st is that initial day of the transfer portal. Also, keep in mind that even before the official first day of the transfer portal, a lot of players will go on social media and will let us know what their intentions are, but they cannot officially enter the transfer portal until May 1st. We've got a big month of April planned here at the Voice of College Football with, of course, all the big spring games pretty much all packed into the month of April. Starting with Michigan on April 1st, we've got a watch party scheduled, and everyone is going to be able to join us. We are going to be in Patreon. However, even if you're not a member of Patreon, we're going to provide the link here and on the Michigan channel. It's going to be all over the place, and you can join us for the Michigan watch party at 3 Eastern on Saturday the 1st. And then for the rest of the month of April, Michigan's got the day to itself this Saturday, basically. But after that, you got 15, 20, 25 teams all playing spring games on the 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th. So we will update you on our plans as we go forward and get close to those Saturdays. But we'll be here. And yes, join us on Patreon. We've got a Discord running, college football talk 24/7, 365 with the knuckleheads. And you can sign up on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com, search Mark Rogers TV, and you can sign up right there. $5 a month. I am fighting with Patreon to get it to $4.99. We're in a death match right now. $4.99 is what I'm demanding. No, it's just a lot of red tape and bureaucracy to fight through to just drop it a penny. But anyway, so until I win, it's $5 a month on Patreon. And again, for you fine folks that have joined us on Patreon and have been loyal supporters, with all the other changes that you see on Patreon and the other changes with the YouTube memberships, we vow to you that you are not losing anything on Patreon. We are actually going to add to everything there. So our guy, Craig Cope, that we honored earlier today, who is our first undisputed national champion member here on our YouTube memberships. We thank you for that. And we've got 8 members now total on YouTube, but we've got the one undisputed national champion. That would be Craig. We will have exclusive content for Craig and everybody else that joins that tier. Indiana has brought in 17 players through the transfer portal. 17. So I guess Tom Allen knows that his job's on the line. Running back Christian Turner would be one. Big Ten fans remember him out of Michigan. Well, he's been playing at Wake Forest. So not a lot of people have been watching him the last 2 years, which reminds me, check out the TV rating series that we're doing. A lot of fine acclaim. We appreciate all the wonderful feedback and the very nice compliments about our TV rating series. We looked at the Pac-12 first because of what's going on with Pac-12. It was most important to dissect the Pac-12 and maybe why the Pac-12 is not being able to sign a lucrative TV deal, or I should call it a media rights deal now because there's a lot of streaming involved. And then we released the Big 12 video, and then this morning the ACC video. So check that out. But Christian Turner, the last 2 years at Wake Forest, has rushed for over 500 yards per season and 13 touchdowns. And now Christian Turner, an old face there at Michigan, will be showing up in an Indiana uniform, as will Linnell Carr out of West Virginia. He had 21 tackles last year. If you lost this in the offseason news cycle, Connor Bazelak, the former Missouri quarterback, who then went to Indiana, had a marginal season there. He's now at Bowling Green. And so Indiana now, I don't know why Connor Bazelak would have left. I know that he lost his job somewhat to, well, he was hurt. He kind of lost his job. Dexter Williams took over. He was the running quarterback. But now it appears as though it would have been all set up for Connor Bazelak to reclaim his job, because Indiana right now has Dexter Williams at quarterback. He showed some flair, some dynamic ability with his legs, but not a very good passing quarterback. Well, he hurt his leg against Purdue in the old Oak and Bucket game to finish off the season. So I don't even believe Dexter Williams is going to suit up for spring practice. And so there is this quarterback competition in Bloomington. Brendan Sorsby, Brock Lowry, and Tavian Jackson. So Tavian Jackson is a 4-star from Tennessee. He's got the highest ceiling, and he's also played the most football. So again, we got a 4-quarterback competition at Indiana, and they've got 17 total transfers coming in. We talked about Christian Turner and also Linnell Carr on the defensive side. Michigan State, Mel Tucker, the first season he came in, he was the king of the transfer portal, and they're bringing in a slew of transfers once again. Tunmis Edeleye was the tackle who came in on the defensive side from Texas A&M. Didn't do anything there, but he was highly touted out of high school as a top 50 prospect in America, 9th-rated defensive lineman coming out of high school. Tyneil Hopper caught 13 passes at Boise State. He's now at Michigan State. Nathan Carter, the running back out of UConn. The mighty Huskies, the mighty fighting Jim Moras out of UConn. Nathan Carter gained almost 600 yards this past season, caught 19 passes, scored a couple touchdowns for the Huskies, now playing for the Spartans. Let's catch up with the super chat coming in. Erica, thank you so much for being here. Curious, why are members on Patreon called knuckleheads? Well, I believe this is the story, Erica, is that at some point during us discussing the Patreon membership and everything that's involved over there, I believe, I don't know this for sure, because this is kind of legend at this point, but I think this is what happened, is that I had a bit of a slip of the tongue, and I, in a very kind and loving way, kidding way, referred to them as the knuckleheads. You know, join these knuckleheads over on Patreon and talk some college football with them. And then I said, well, you know, I really don't see them as knuckleheads. It just, you know, it was in a sort of way. And I think they liked it. I know they liked it. So they were like, yeah, we're the knuckleheads. So that's where that came from. So Erica, thank you so much for being here. And Erica, of course, hoping that Brian Ferentz And I don't know if Cade McNamara is going to be on the field much this spring, but all those offensive minds there at Iowa are cooking up something good for this season. I know you're optimistic, Erica. I think we may see you in the Big Ten championship game this year. If you find any kind of offense, and maybe even if you don't, because it worked 2 years ago. But thank you for that, Erica. And maybe some of the knuckleheads themselves can fill you in. But that's my recollection of what happened. Oh, Michael says Wisconsin is here. Good to know. Yes, Badger, Bournemouth. Thank you so much for that. We appreciate everybody that's joined us as a YouTube member. So basically what the deal is we've got a first tier that we called and don't, I'm not the best in naming things. So really when I named all these live streams, if you've caught on, we've been very systematic. It's Ohio State Buckeyes live. It's Iowa Hawkeyes live. It's Michigan Wolverines live. It's Florida State Seminoles live. You get the point. You see a lot of these other YouTube channels and podcasts. They come up with these crazy, interesting, creative kind of names. Sometimes they're stupid. Sometimes they're funny. Sometimes they're whatever. They're witty. They're ironic. Yeah, I just didn't really take the time to try to brainstorm. I just thought, you know what? Let's get the name out there. So that's what we did. So I brought all that up. Oh, with the YouTube membership. So I wanted to come up with tier names that connected to what we do here at the Voice of College Football. So the best I could come up with was we've got the top 25 that actually makes sense. We've got the undisputed national champion, just because I like to take off on the national championships and which ones should be disputed. They are disputed, and so forth. So anyway, you can check out our YouTube memberships and exactly what each tier provides you. Keep in mind, of course, that every higher tier includes everything below it. And again, we took a lot of care as we introduce this to not take anything away from Patreon. We're actually adding to Patreon. So Patreon members, you get more. You've been very fine in just having the Discord and the predictions that we deliver during the football season. And we've got like 15 to 20 media members. They deliver their predictions. Then we got our buddy Steve Merrill, who's basically a savant when it comes to predicting games, because he's the odds maker, handicapper guy from Wager Talk. And he went 13-1 against the spread in our exclusive Under the Radar selection each week. So you get one selection each week from Steve under the radar. I still can't believe it. 13-1 against the spread last year. In my picks as well, usually 60% against the spread, 80% straight up. That's the goal. That's the aim, the mission, the goal, all that business. We appreciate John being here. And of course, John is going to take over the hosting here at 6 Eastern. And you can expect a lot of your favorite media folks to be also taking on some hosting duties here at the Voice of College Football. So I talked to Corey Braddock today. I've talked to him a number of times, as we typically do. And so we've talked about it, and Corey will be doing some hosting here at the Voice of College Football for the Big Ten Live show as well. So we are looking forward to seeing Corey here, probably starting next week. We will see at what point he's available. But he is tied up with the Lady Hawkeyes right now. I know that between John and now I see Dave chiming in, we've heard from Erica about a Michigan-Iowa Big Ten championship game, of course, with the drama of Cade McNamara and Eric all facing the maize and blue. Nate Will is telling us that James Franklin is an overhated coach. He has it. That's a new term to me, but I like that. Overhated coach. He has his in-game slip-ups, but for the most part is very stable in years where he's not affected by sanctions or COVID. He has 4 11-win seasons in 6 years. Yeah, James Franklin's issues are he's not the best in-game coach in America. He's nowhere close to the level of Les Miles, though. He's so much better than Les Miles. So he doesn't screw up to that degree. And there's been some other coaches that have been in that realm. But James Franklin's not the best tactician. If I were in James Franklin's shoes making $8.5 million a year and had one of the best football brands in the country, and I was trying to, as he stated it, it's now been like 4 years ago that they had another gut-wrenching loss to Ohio State, and he sat there after the postgame or during the postgame and said, they're elite. He called his own program great, which I thought was a stretch at the time, but said, they're elite. We want to get there. That's the goal. We're trying to push through to get there and past them. And here we are years later, and he's still not there. So he's a really good coach, runs a great program, or a really good program, but maybe some on-field game management, clock management help would be in order. Jake says, if you had to pick the Big Ten West team with the most potential to take off, who would you pick, Mark? That would be Wisconsin this year, just for this year, Wisconsin. I know I'm putting a lot on Luke Fickell to get things, and they don't need to turn things around, but they need to. They certainly were not a team the last couple seasons that was ready to face the upper echelon of the Big Ten. Shoot, look at the Ohio State game last year. That was a train wreck. And they got manhandled in the second half by Michigan the previous season. But, the quarterback situation with Tanner Mordecai coming in, and I know that he didn't play in the Power 5 last year, but I think he is fully capable of being a top-flight Big Ten quarterback. Braylon Allen's back. Again, Luke Fickell, this is a lot to ask first season because it sometimes takes a full year and a half off season, build relationships, get everyone on board, weed out who you don't want to be there. There's always that. For as good a program and as stable as Wisconsin is, there's going to be players that Luke Fickell is going to watch and see and get to know, be like, this isn't the spot for you. This isn't the best place for you. So that there's always a vetting out process of personnel. Terminology is different, especially since they're changing the offense. So I'm putting a lot on Luke Fickell this year to be able to pull this off. So if they go 7-5 this year, I'm not going to be down on Luke Fickell because he's got a big challenge. He's overhauling the offense with Phil Longo coming in from North Carolina. And that's a lot to place on Luke Fickell. But I do think that they would be the team. If there's going to be a team in the West that is going to challenge the top 3 in the East, they're my number 1 selection. Now, that said, there's a difference between that and who's most likely the team to win the West. That might be Iowa because of defense and scheduling. R. Gross says that Nebraska is not going to take as long as a lot of people think. Rule can turn it around with what they have and being in the weaker side of the conference. However, hang on, R. Gross. Let's keep in mind that there's not going to be most likely a weaker side of the conference in just 1 year. What we have in the Big Ten is only going to last most likely for 1 more season. The conference is going to get blown up, and this cushion that these Big Ten Western Division teams have right now in playing a lot of mediocre competition against each other, that's going to end. and that should be announced. I would guess before the next football season. That the 2024 format is going to be announced sometime this spring or fall, or this spring or summer before the fall. And as John mentions there, so they could do a number of things here. And shoot, search my channel and look at all the obvious options, or the obvious options to me, that are there. So they could blow the whole thing up and just go no divisions. They could go with pods. We've outlined some pods that would be available, that they could do a 4x4, 4 pods, 4 teams in each one. They could simply do a division adjustment, as John is suggesting right there. And the way I would see it is you just simply take USC and UCLA, you add them to the West, and you take Purdue and you move them over to the East to play against Indiana. And you fix the divisions very, very easily. So that's not going to be easy for the West if they've got to look at USC and UCLA suddenly in the West. But there's a number of options there, and we'll be fascinated to see how that all shakes out, both the conference format and then also how they're going to approach scheduling. Got our buddy David Greenshield on the line. David, what's going on tonight?
How you doing, Mark? You moved up the show on me this week. Is it just this week?
Just this week. Just
Okay.
this week. We've got some things to move around here. So here we are at 4 p.m. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
What's
good to
going
see
on?
you. Like the attire. The jacket's looking good.
I hope it's looking good.
Yeah.
I hope
Uh,
other people think it looks good too.
there you go. There you go. How's the diet coming? Good?
The diet, not much of a diet this weekend. It was a diet of a lot of cookies, and well, I didn't have any ice cream.
You fall back into that sweets rut. That can be tough, Mark.
Yeah, that rut's been going on for 50 plus years.
I hear you, man. Nothing like a good cookie. Um, I
Or
wanted to
12.
talk.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk to you. I got a chance to listen to your podcast this week with Mr. Dace
Yes.
on how he sees the kind of changing landscape in recruiting
He's
going.
excited.
Yeah, well, it's about time they maybe build off a little bit of that success there. Although I just noticed that Ohio State had gotten an in-state commit from a lineman from St. Ed's.
Yes.
And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this, just kind of overall big picture on this, and where I kind of see this heading, and why we're at this point to a great degree. I think that the first thing I have to say is, Ohio State, and we had mentioned this, and we've actually kind of gone back and forth on this, Mark, about Ohio State targeting more in-state talent as compared to out-of-state talent, and kind of where Ohio is in recruiting to where it was, maybe 1990s, early 2000s, more in the Cooper Tressel era as compared to where it was in the Meyer era. And then I think, Urban kind of came in and changed the dynamic to a great degree. Obviously, I think I may have mentioned these numbers to you, that Tressel was about 60-40 Ohio, and Urban was about 40-60 the other way. In looking at the percentages. But what I always found most interesting is that even though Urban changed the dynamic, the team he won the national title with had, I believe, 14 or 15 starters from the state of Ohio. So I always kind of find it interesting. He came in to change that dynamic, but wouldn't you know, the team he won with had a majority of starters that were from in-state. So that may say something as well. And I know we've talked about kind of the changes in the state, the population shift, the fact that Ohio could use 7-on-7 football and spring football might help. I will say, just overall, I don't know if you've looked at this state recruiting class. This state does the 2024 recruiting class does appear to be a little bit stronger than the previous two. I don't know if you've looked it over, but this upcoming class does appear to be a little bit stronger.
So are you coming to that conclusion based on the national rankings of the players?
Well, not just the rankings. I think that this class actually, I think, possessed a few more players that Ohio State would probably offer than maybe in years past that were a little bit more Ohio State type material. Because, I mean, in the past, Ohio State would only offer like six, maybe recruit 6 or 7 guys in state. Maximum. You look at their last few recruiting classes, it was only 6, maybe 7. 8 would be a really good year out of, let's say, a 23, 24 man recruiting class. So now, and I thought this was the type of recruiting class. I know you talked about this on the Buckeye show where they could have seen, possibly, 8, maybe 9 guys, in state. And unfortunately, they did not get Marshall. Now, the one thing I'll say is that the recruiting rankings, first of all, I want to start off by saying that obviously the recruiting cycle isn't over with, and I think that they have a chance to still finish very strong. Remember, in years past, Alabama at this time of year was only ranked what, like 15, 16, and where did they end up finishing? So I would be a little bit cautious to say that Ohio State, even though they might be behind in the rankings right now, could not still finish strong and with a top 5 class. So I would also say there's a little bit of a pump the brakes approach here. I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, if somebody forced me to make a prediction on who was going to finish with a higher ranked recruiting class for 2024, I would still say Ohio State.
Yeah. And I think they still have, some commits that they're going to get, maybe a few more in-state, and then also some out-of-state commits as well. I know that they've been looking at a running back out of the state of Texas that's a top 5 running back according to the recruiting rankings that I think actually was ranked higher than the running back out of Cincinnati. Not that the Marshall out of Cincinnati wouldn't have been a great get. I think, and time will tell too. If he's a year or 2 from now and he's the next Edwards or Quorum for them, then we'll see. But you really don't know about recruiting rankings until obviously you see them on the field. And I think that goes without saying.
Yeah. So what I wanted to point out basically on Steve's show was that, okay, I tried to balance it out between this is not a big deal versus, okay, well, let's see if this could be legitimate. And it's way too early to tell if this is any kind of trend.
Right.
But if I'm Marshall and I'm looking at Ohio State and Michigan, and if I'm just looking at them as opportunities to get to the NFL and to play and to go to the NFL, I know that Michigan runs the ball more. Not that an Ohio State running back, of course, can't make the NFL, but Michigan runs the ball more. And I just think it's more likely that Donovan Edwards and Blake Corum move on after this season than it is with Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams. So I just see a clearer path, and maybe that's what he's seeing first and foremost. Next, I would say that Cincinnati has never been a lockdown territory for Ohio State. That's another thing to consider. I went through recruiting class after recruiting class after recruiting class, and just as you mentioned, Ohio has settled into a place in terms of producing talent where Ohio State seems to be very locked into the top 7 or 8, and they get almost all of them.
Yeah.
The season before, the one that was just signed, 2023, Ohio State got 7 of the top 8 players in the state.
Right.
Michigan, during the entire Harbaugh era before this Marshall signing, never got a player ranked higher than 10th in the state of Ohio. Their signings were 16, 18, 23, all those guys. Now, a couple of them turned out to be really good players, but most of them didn't. And now they get the number 3 player in the state, and it seems fairly certain that they will get the number 4 player in the state. So again, I don't want to make a trend out of 2 players.
Who was the number 4 player?
The Brian Robinson out of
the defensive lineman. Yeah,
the edge rusher out of Fitch, Youngstown Fitch. So I don't want to make a trend out of that, but they've never in all of Harbaugh's recruiting years had not done that, and now they're going to grab 2. And then the other concerning point would be that if Michigan has been producing, and by all accounts, it has a slightly better offensive line than Ohio State, well, shouldn't Ohio State be grabbing those offensive linemen that are 12th, 13th, 15th in the state overall? And Michigan's
Well,
going after those guys.
they just did. They signed an Armstrong, one of the
Yeah, I've
Armstrongs.
got him right here. Yeah,
Yeah,
13th rated player in the state. Yep.
right, an offensive lineman, and that's the other thing. I mean, you can go back to also looking at this from a positional standpoint too, Mark. We can, because what's always been kind of the general theory about the Midwest compared to the South, that you get your big boys from the Midwest, i.e., your O lineman, D lineman from the Midwest, and maybe you go get your speed from the South. Maybe your skill players, possibly your corners, players of those positional needs, in different parts of the country. And that was the one thing I would say about the Meyer era is the best offensive linemen that he had over that time frame were from the state, were from in-state offensive linemen. Guys like Jack Muhort, Corey Lindsley, Taylor Decker, who was on the 2014 offensive line, was a very good player playing with the Lions right now. So, he did a lot as far as that goes. Now, to the team up north and where they're at, a statement was once made back in the 80s and the 90s that they couldn't beat Northwestern if they didn't have Ohio players. And remember, it's no coincidence they had two Heisman Trophy winners in the 90s. And what state were they from, Mark?
They were both from basically the same metropolitan area.
Right. Yeah. And the thing about it being is if you go back and look at, it's interesting. Look at the Brady Hoke era. That, Harbaugh's team, I saw you made a little bit of put something online about the 2016 game. Several of his key players on that team were Ohio guys that weren't recruited by him. Most of those players were Brady Hoke's players, right? If I'm not
Oh, yeah.
mistaken. I mean, Jake Butt, I believe, was from Ohio. One of the offensive linemen was from
Yep.
Ohio. I think Taco Charlton, one of the defensive players, was from Ohio, if I'm not mistaken. So you figure that it's a little surprising that Harbaugh didn't kind of work that blueprint, in his opening years, as you kind of bared out in your stats.
And just to make a correction, Charles Woodson played at he was in a
Fremont.
Fremont. Yes. Fremont.
Yep.
Actually, I didn't know who Charles Woodson was until I called one of his high school basketball games. That's the first time I got introduced to Charles Woodson. Was I was announcing one of his high school basketball games, and I was told, okay, this kid's a great football player. But anyway, when I made that statement about the Cleveland area, I was thinking Desmond Howard and Elvis Gerbach. They both played in Cleveland.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe the same high school, if I'm not mistaken. I think they might
Yep.
have played at the same high school. Yeah, I mean, that's the one thing is that like there's different pockets of the state. You make a good point on that, Mark. Where I tell you, Noon has mentioned on the Buckeye podcast that the Cleveland area has kind of dried up a little bit. Although I actually think the Cleveland area, well, the resurgence of Cleveland Glenville could really help Ohio State. Because if you want to watch one high school that sent more talent to Ohio State over the years than any high school, it's Cleveland Glenville. That's where you get Troy Smith. That's where you get Ted Ginn. That's where you get Dante Whitner and Marshawn Lattimore and NFL talent. I mean, not bad,
Not at all.
And St. Ed's has also became a state power there too. That's who the Armstrong, who they just recruited, and they're winning the state title. So those would be the two programs in the Cleveland area. I would say to Noon, the one area that's dried up the most, and this isn't surprising, is that Youngstown Warren area, Mark, that used to be a real hotbed of high school football back when we were younger, back in our day.
I would guess that while the state of Ohio's population has stayed fairly steady, but it's actually increased slightly,
Mm-hmm.
not as heavily as a lot of other areas in the country. But for a Midwestern state, it's actually done much better than just about every other state. That would be an area within the state that's lost population.
Yeah, that would be what it's like pockets. Like, Columbus has stayed pretty strong, but then Youngstown Warren has like lost a lot, over the years. So I would say this too, Mark, from a coaching standpoint at Ohio State, I mentioned the running back out of Texas. This does put a lot of pressure on Tony Alford. I would say the running back coach, because I mean, he did get Trey Henderson in the 21 recruiting class and, had a very good freshman year, but because of injuries, I don't think had a very good year last year. But that's really, I mean, he's got to get at least 2 running backs this recruiting cycle. As our friend Zach Smith puts it, he's committed to having at least one Ohio running back or an NFL running back on Ohio State's roster every season. And, for the most part, he's had that. I mean, I believe he actually recruited J.K. Dobbins, although I think J.K. Dobbins was coming here, even if Tony Alford wouldn't have been the running back coach. He just wanted to come to Ohio State. But that's the big thing that's where the pressure's on, because they had Mark Fletcher out of recruited last year, but I think Miami decided to get some money together, tidy a large lump sum and get Mr. Fletcher some cash. Are your people in your Miami cast even acknowledging that they're doing some of the quiet part out loud down there, Mark?
Well, they acknowledge it, but they also say that everyone else is too. They're just playing by the current structure.
Okay. So they're just saying the not so quiet part out loud, that, hey, you know what, win in Rome. Let's just basically, that's it. We make no apologies.
Well, it's
If
not
we
like
got to
Ohio
drop
State does
bags, we're
not
dropping
have an
bags.
NIL collective.
What's that?
Well, it's not like Ohio State does not have an NIL collective.
Well, right. But remember, that goes back to our original conversation, though, Mark. What was the NIL designed for? It was designed for the players to get to college to make money off their name, image, and likeness.
Yeah.
I don't think it was designed to pay high school players to come to the college to play college football in the
That's actually
first
against the
place.
rules. It's not supposed to be an enticement.
Well, guess what? We're not living
Sure.
in that world.
No, we're not, because nobody's enforcing it.
Right.
So the two things that I'm not necessarily seeing is, number one, yes, there's no, and it's just like in the old world before all of this NIL, were there schools that were cheating that didn't get caught? Absolutely. But it's just like the speed limit. I'd like to see enforcement of the speed limit, i.e., college football, to know that everyone at least knows somebody's going to get caught at some point, and you run amok at your own risk. But I don't see that happening at all. I don't know who's going to get a hold of this, but yes, I would like to see if there's any evidence of with which the Jaden or the Jaden Rashada, the Florida quarterback or the would-be Florida quarterback, that when the deal falls through and in all the documented statements of what happened, when the chronology shows clearly that the deal was put in place before the National Signing Day. Well, there you go. That's your clear-cut case of it being an enticement. So I'd like to see that cleaned up, or at least enforced. And then I want to just know that these players are fulfilling the qualifications of that, and that they're not being paid to play, that of course, their play puts them in a position to obviously be valuable, but they're having to do something for the compensation. They have to be on a podcast. They have to be advertising something. They have to be doing something.
You would think that would be the case. You'd think they'd be doing some advertising for, like, I mean, because that was like one of the things I thought it would be for too. Is like if you did advertising for, let's say, a car dealership or something, you could earn, off of that, or jersey sales. Wasn't that also supposed to be part of it too, Mark?
Well, I think jersey sales was one of the first things that any of us thought of years and years and years ago, because Ohio Stadium's full of number 10s and number 45s, and we all know why.
Yeah, I hear you. Hey, one last thing about the Big Ten at large this year, Mark, and maybe it's just way too early. Who's your sleeper 2019 Minnesota this year? Early feel.
Does Wisconsin count?
Kinda, but
they went 7-6 last year.
Yeah, that would be a major improvement.
Okay, they're my 11-2. If there's going to be an 11-2, yes, they're my number
outside
one
the big
choice.
boys.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
They are by far my number one choice.
Yeah, I could see that. What about? Well, I think we said Nebraska maybe 6-6 at best, looking kind of at that schedule after last week.
Yeah, the Nebraska fans want to think otherwise, but they're a bunch that's highly optimistic. This year after year of getting beat down and beaten over the head with 7 and 8 losses um, has not changed their outlook.
Yeah. Remember, as I was told a long time ago, fan is short for fanatic. It is not short for rational thinker.
No, no, it's not. No.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Looking good.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, take care now. Bye bye.
Very good. All right, we will keep it moving here at the Voice of College Football. And again, want to let you know that we typically come your way every Monday at 6 Eastern. Moved the time today. Therefore, that's why it's important to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell for the notifications. That way, you know when we go live. We released an ACC video earlier today that goes in line with the series that we started a few days ago when we dissected the Pac 12 ratings, TV ratings. And if you are familiar with what's going on in college football right now, probably the biggest story out there is that the Pac 12 has not signed a media rights deal. And of course, the conference could be on the brink of falling apart, crumbling. If they come back with a number after they sign a media deal that is not competitive with the other conferences or what with their member schools consider to be reasonable, then we know that the Big 12 is just waiting to take on those schools: Utah, Colorado, Arizona, Arizona State, certainly Washington and Oregon. Although those two schools, talk about two schools that are ready to roll, they're ready to roll to the Big 10. How do you guys feel about Washington and Oregon in the Big 10? All right. Next up here, the Voice of College Football. What's going on, man? Hello, sir. Can you hear me? All right. Try coming back in. We'll give it another shot. We've got our buddy John Diadamo coming up at the top of the hour to take over the show at 6 Eastern. And we will explain to you exactly what you need to do. We're going to have to break up the show into 2-hour blocks here. So we need all of you to hang tight and grab another live stream there. W. Harmon, thank you so much for the contribution. We appreciate you, sir. Thank you for that. And again, if you didn't get it earlier, we've got shout outs going out to a number of YouTube members that have jumped on board here in the last week. There we go. We've got a big thank you out there for Dan Beast Media, Tim Prangley, Joey Foster, DS. We got Jason O, and we've got Badger Bournemouth. Thank you for joining us on YouTube and our membership program there. And again, you can see the tiers and see the benefits and what you would get. If you have any questions, of course, you can always hit me up at MarkRogersTV at Gmail. And again, special thanks to all of them. And also our first undisputed national champion, who is one Craig Cope. I'm going to have to look back at those tiers and what I named the tiers. I thought one of those tiers was the top 25 that actually makes sense tier. I know that's a little wordy, but we like our top 25 that actually makes sense. Voice of college football, Blue Bloods. Jason, appreciate you being here with another super chat. Had one for Tim and company last night. You see Tim's comment on the screen right now. Join Tim and Matt Zemek from Trojans Wire tonight. They will be knocking out our USC live show tonight, so we're excited about that. Tim will probably do such an outstanding job that I won't be allowed back to do the USC show, but I own the channel, so I will be back next Monday. But we've got Tim, we've got Matt all lined up. Yes, USC Trojans live. coming up. That's at 8 Pacific time, 8 o'clock, where it counts on the West Coast. So, Big Ten folks, you want to lock in on USC football talk. It's coming up tonight, as it does every Monday night. All right, let's give this another shot. Welcome in, sir. Who's
Hey,
on the line?
how are you, sir? This is
Got
Alex.
Alex here. What's going on?
What's going on? So, piggybacking on the last caller's comments about Trev and Mai. For some reason, it seems like there's a plague surrounding Dallin, TC, and Chip. It's like nobody dare talk about them and their strengths and their amazingness, and I find that sad because they are possibly, other than maybe Zeke or what's his name, number 2, I forget his name, the last back we had, the last
J.K.
great one.
Dobbins?
I mean, right. Those are the 3 best backs we honestly have. It's not Trev, it's not mine. And I feel like it's a plague for people. It's like, shh, don't talk about them, not Dallin, not TC, not Chip. And I'm like, wow, but they're so good. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, why,
Well, I don't know that Chip Tranum is one of Ohio State's best backs. I give him a ton of credit for being pressed into duty against Michigan when he had only converted from linebacker to running back a couple of weeks earlier, had basically no meaningful carries on the season, and he's thrown in as the main back against Michigan, and he performed extremely well.
That's fair. Well, what about Dallin and TC? I mean, I think they're amazing.
Yeah, what Dallin Hayden showed us against Maryland, maybe Ohio State doesn't win that game without what Dallin Hayden showed us. So I think Dallin Hayden, I wish we would have seen him against Michigan. I don't know what happened there. I don't know that Ryan Day just simply didn't trust him. I don't know why
they talked about his ball handling skills. Like he supposedly was dropping the ball, and then some reporter, I think it was Kevin Noon, said, "What's this whole thing about him dropping the ball?" Oh, well, he's fine. He's not dropping the ball. It's like, well, then why are you so against Dallin? He's amazing. I don't know. It's like this plague around.
They played a tight game the week before at Maryland, and they were in a tough spot, and they gave it to him over and over, and he runs for 145 yards. And so I don't know why he's not trusted with the football the next week.
I don't understand it. He's such an amazing back. I heard him and Kai Stokes got in on it. And during the scrimmage, he like belted Stokes, hard. And like he gained like 20 pounds or something, or 10 pounds. Like he's bigger. He's amazing. And honestly, like as much as people love Trev, and I get it, I understand. He's a great receiver. I mean, he's really good at open space. He can run fast, but he's not a hitter, and he doesn't know how to juke. And Dallin's a great juker. And TC, oh my gosh, you can just see what he has, even in practice. Like he can find space. He is amazing. TC's going to be amazing. And I don't know what our deal is. And like Mayan's a nice short distance back. I mean, he's great at smashing him in the face for like 2 or 3 yards. But, I mean, I don't know. I just feel like if we're really going to take it to the next level outside of our receiving core, we've got to have the running, and it's got to be Dallin, and it's got to be TC. And I think Chip can really smack people in the face. He's a really tough runner. So that's my take on it.
I do want to see Travion Henderson with a full year and a healthy year to see what he can do. And so, he was just compromised with the foot last year. And Williams was also, they're in a great place. If those guys are all healthy, well, they're going to have a great problem trying to get them all touches.
I think we had such an amazing O-line, and that's why Trev was so amazing the year before. That's my opinion. That he was so amazing because our O-line was amazing, and they just created space for him. You know what I mean? Like a traditional back has to find that space and make it. You know what I mean? And I feel like Trev just doesn't have that. He's like a flanker or something. Throw him the ball way out in the flat, and then give him. And if he has space, yeah, you can't catch him. He's really fast. But I mean, is that really your back? You know what I mean?
Yeah, he wasn't. Well, first of all, I'm gonna cut him some slack that he had a great freshman season, but you're right. It was produced on a lot of long runs in which the offensive line got him a gap, got him a hole, got him a lot of space, and then he could use his speed in the open field as opposed to him breaking a lot of tackles, carrying guys. We didn't see a whole lot of that out of him, but he was a freshman, and guys typically, if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing in the offseason, get stronger as they get older.
I think you're being nice. but
Well, I'm a nice guy, Alex.
Yeah, of course.
But I
So
get your point. I
let me
get
throw
your
this out to
point.
you too. Eliano and Walton. I know Walton got this huge extension, but like I don't know. I feel like I don't know. They've got to have. I don't think it's Knowles so much. I think the telescope should be on those two guys. What do you think?
Absolutely, it should be. They're coaching what is the weakest unit on the team, and so what was once almost every year one of the strongest, if not the strongest unit on the team, has become the worst.
I know we've got such talent. I mean, okay, so our corners are so we got that incoming, of course, but our safeties are insane. We've got amazing safeties. I mean, I think Eliano's the really the big, he's the weakest link. That's my opinion.
And I'm a bit surprised since one of them coached in the NFL and one of them came from Cincinnati, where they had a really strong secondary and they had that playoff team. So,
oh right, wow.
maybe there's an issue with their coaching styles and what they want to do with these DBs clashing with what Jim Knowles does. I don't know.
Wow, them versus Knowles. Wow, that's something. Wow, yeah. And Knowles, I think, has realized he's talking a lot about the word basics, back to basics, back to smash mouth kind of stuff. So he's getting the idea, less schemy. And then I think what's his name, Dave. It's good that Dave relinquished some power, but I think they've got to get more schemy and more running to long to short to running to long to short, and not. They were so focused on the long ball for so long because CJ could throw them. So moving around, more schemy, and then that running group. I mean, Trev is a nice guy, and so does mine. But our backs are Dallin and TC, and then Chip. Chip could be fullback, maybe even replace Rossi. I mean, Chip is just wow. He's scary when he hits someone. But
so, Alex, I'm a bit interested that you've elevated these guys past Mayan Williams.
Well, I don't think
Chip Tranum's better than Mayan Williams. What has he done?
That's brilliant. Yeah, it's a good question. What's that?
I'm just wondering what he has done to show you that.
It's the little spurts, just his movement towards someone. Like he wants to go through someone in a way that I think Mayan is good at goal line, kind of like pushing people, but straight up like smashing in your face. Chip is very violent. He's a great violent running back, whereas I don't think Mayan's quite like that. Mayan had some great games. I just don't think he's, he doesn't have that upper end speed. And I think Chip should be looked at more. That's my opinion. And the things I've seen, the games he's played, he's just, but I hear you. Mayan's, he's a great player, but I think Chip is a little better. I know that it's hard to support that because there's not a lot of tape on him, especially outside of Arizona State. But then again, TC and Dallin. I mean, Dallin is just such a natural, maybe because of his dad. He's such a natural back. And then TC is just, whoa. I mean, like this guy finds space quickly. And you see him in practice too. He's like, you're just like, wow, this guy can move. So I just feel like we've got the backs. Our receivers are insane. Our quarterbacks will be amazing. I think our O-line is going to shape out. I can see it with Zen and now Josh at tackle. I think our O-line is going to be good. I have a strong feeling we're going to be good. Our team's awesome. We just got some loose links, and we don't like to talk about loose links. It's like, we like, I don't know. But so I think it's those two players, the two running backs, the two coaches. I don't know. You're brilliant. Come on, Mark.
Discussion about these
What's
running
that?
backs, Alex, with all the discussion about the running backs, there is a guy who is the second-rated running back in the country coming out of high school who isn't even on this list of guys that we're talking about. That's Evan Pryor.
Yeah, totally. He should be part of that group of four that I like him and Dallin and what's his name? Yeah. TC. Yeah, absolutely. Evan's amazing. You're right. He's totally amazing. He got hurt. Evan's someone who got hurt who should be playing. He's an amazing back. Absolutely. 100%.
Okay, Alex. Anything else for us?
Let's see. One little kind of like interesting thing, I think I brought this up last time, is anyone that wants to beat Georgia has got to increase their running in practice. If you saw the practice drills before the championship, before the playoff game, Georgia is like, they're just crazy with their running drills. They're so intense, and I think that's why they outgas people by the fourth quarter. So that's the secret, I think, for a lot of teams when they go and meet Georgia, is to really prepare running for that fourth quarter, running in practice. That's pretty much it. It was the coaches, the players, less scheming on defense, more scheming on offense. We're just an awesome team this year. We're going to be awesome. That's all I got.
Does awesome mean winning every game?
Genius. That's going to be the number one question from Mark Rogers for the whole year. Does awesome mean winning every game, or how many games does it mean? Absolutely. I don't know. You should put that banner behind you. Does awesome mean? Absolutely. I don't know. I have a feeling yes. Obviously our troubles will be JJ, Blake, and Donovan over Michigan, no question. Georgia maybe if we meet them again. We outdo ourselves. That's what it is. We sabotage ourselves. And I think it's Day. Day's a very nervy guy. He's a very mental guy. And I think he kind of outdoes himself. And he's brilliant, smart guy. But like, I think we've got to just get back to basics. We're Ohio State, we're Big Ten, and we beat people up. That's what the football game is. It's not Princeton. It's not Rutgers of 100 years ago. It's a violent, nasty sport, and you got to be nasty. And that's what was great about Urban. Urban was an Ohio boy, and he got it. Even though I'm a New York guy, Urban was Ohio. He was like, I want you to fucking go, excuse the language, want you to go crazy. He got it. He got what the game should be like. And I think that's what we've got to return to. Even though Day's a great tactician, he's very smart. It's a violent game, and Ohio State has got to be a Big Ten team. And if we return in that respect, we've got talent on a level that doesn't exist, I think, anywhere in the country. I don't think even that's debatable. So to answer your question, I say yes, this year is going to happen, and that's big. I feel yes, this is the year.
Well, Alex, it is debatable at places like Alabama and Georgia in particular.
Debatable in what respect?
Well, you just said that Ohio State's got the best talent in the
talent. I think incoming talent for sure. Yeah, Georgia and Alabama incoming, absolutely, for possibly this coming year and possibly 20 and 24. Yeah, but already previous season talent, I think we've got the most. What do you think?
No, I do not think that Ohio State's got the very best talent in the country.
Oh, interesting. Who do you feel it is?
I think that Georgia's got the best talent in the country. I believe they've got the best roster in the country.
Prospects and
Ohio State's close. I think Ohio State's close, and Alabama certainly. Those are the three schools that I believe right this second have the most talent on their rosters.
Right. Do you think the present talent of Georgia and the present talent of Bama is over on top of Ohio State?
Yes.
Wow. Slightly. Ugh. Yes. I don't. Well, I'm going to be a homer. I'd say no, but okay. But I think Ohio State's number one. What's that?
Okay.
Anyways, awesome. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you, Alex. Appreciate you being here. Have a good one. It's our guy, Alex, checking in, Ohio State fan. Jason Moose, thank you so much for the Super Chat contribution. Looking forward to the Wisconsin Whitewater game in 2024. That should be quite the matchup. I do see that Rutgers plays Wagner, and Northwestern has a game against somebody called, I believe, Bison. Yeah. Look at Northwestern's schedule. There's a school there that I've never even seen before that they're playing. I guess they're looking for somebody that they can win a game against. And so Northwestern has an interesting non-conference schedule. We open up the show today, everyone, by talking about non-conference games for the Big Ten. And I'm a bit dismayed by Ohio, the Big Ten's overall scheduling of non-conference games. Again, if you add them all up against the Power Five, you've got 3 against the Big 12, 3 against the Pac 12, 7 against the ACC. Nothing wrong with that. 0 against the SEC. Now, I'm not completely blaming the Big Ten for that. It's a two-way street, certainly, but I don't know why that doesn't get corrected. I don't understand. Well, I understand it because everybody's scheduling their own games. So schedule them to your benefit. I totally get that. I would be doing the same thing. If I was an athletic director at Pick the School, any school, of course, I would be running that athletic department and that football program for the very benefit of our football program to win the most games, make the most money. Those would be the two objectives. We want to do every decision we make, in addition to obviously building a good culture for the student athletes, all of that. But that aside, from a business perspective, win as many games as you can and make as much money as possible. That's why you're there. So, yeah, I can understand why you wouldn't go schedule the most difficult games, but that's why we need a scheduling structure in place. And I do see where the ACC is scheduling 6 games against the SEC. So that's what it is. All right. Do we know if John's ready to roll? John, you got a few more minutes left. You don't need to pop on right now, but certainly jump on. Let me know when you're ready to roll. But so that's what we started in. I attacked the non-conference scheduling. We ran through the Big Ten Eastern Division and the various transfer portal additions for everyone, and why Connor Bazelak is leaving for Bowling Green when there is a quarterback position open at Indiana. I don't completely understand that, but that's his decision, of course. And again, 17 transfer portal additions at Indiana. Tom Allen knows that he needs to keep his job. So that's what we have there. So we are always awaiting your recommendations and your suggestions and your requests here at the Voice of College Football. Please send them in. We're in the midst of a series in which we are dissecting TV ratings per conference and getting a feel for why certain conferences are making so much money. That's easy to see in the TV ratings, but the TV ratings don't tell you everything. So we certainly provide a context for what they tell us. So that's been an interesting and well-received series. So I appreciate everybody watching those videos and chiming in with a lot of great debate. The Michigan spring game. The Michigan spring game is coming up this Saturday at 3 Eastern. And right on cue, we got John here. We got the Michigan spring game that we're all going to watch together. It's the watch party that we're going to have on Patreon. But while you may believe, based on that you're going to be left out, you will not. So we are going to provide that Patreon link for everyone here at the Voice of College Football. We'll have it here on the main channel. We'll throw it on the Michigan channel. Shoot, I think I'll throw it on every channel on the community page. So you'll be able to just grab that link. You can join us. Even if you're not a member of Patreon, you can join us for the Michigan watch party for the spring game. And then directly after, we'll jump on the Michigan channel and take your calls.
Absolutely. So I just have the banner up here. Michigan spring game, April 1st at 3 p.m. Eastern, free. So you can get a sense of what we're all about and potentially join the knuckleheads at the Voice of College Football, which we've taken up as our mantle.
That's it. I love it. You heard Erica chiming in earlier, wanting the backstory on that.
Yes, Erica. Well, we always love when Erica does that, and she gave a super chat to ask too. So I mean, we had to address it because anytime somebody gives a super chat, like Jason, who has been a consistent contributor, and we love that. Indiana's in trouble. Indiana losing all their QBs. Yeah, they're in trouble.
I ran down the Indiana quarterback situation in the first 2-hour block. Connor Bazelak leaves for Bowling Green, and he's not a great quarterback, but he's capable. He started for Missouri for a full season plus, went to Indiana, the same deal. So he's certainly a capable quarterback. And then they've got Jack Tuttle, who, of course, he was a former 4-star, started at Utah, made his way to Michigan eventually. Well, has now through Indiana, so they lose Jack Tuttle as well. And now they've got 3 guys in the mix that have 0 experience. Now they've got Dexter Williams, who unseated Bazelak to a certain extent, partially because of injury. And Dexter Williams is a really dynamic kind of Denard, like a poor man's Denard Robinson kind of quarterback, a dynamic kind of guy, but needs to hone the passing skills. But he's hurt. He's not going to be competing in the spring. So, yeah, Indiana's in dire need of putting something together, certainly this year. Tom Allen's coming off 0-9 and 2-7 the last 2 years in the Big Ten. So his job is on shaky ground.
Yeah, Brock Lowry looks like he's coming in 3-star. It's tough because I think that Indiana in the past, especially when Mike Hart was there, when they had some of the offensive coaching that helped them do very well in 2019, 2020, that's gone, replaced with other coaches, and so far we've seen them lose talent. Jack Tuttle deciding to come to Michigan. And I still do. I'm guessing that's because it's kind of like the Alan Bowman replacement. So, let's this is the mentality I think Harbaugh thinks, okay, it worked last time. So let's get another transfer quarterback to replace Bowman. Let's get Jack Tuttle. And getting a transfer center worked too. So let's go. I mean, you can't fault it. You can't fault the mentality. It seems to have worked out okay.
I have promised, John, of course, to give shout outs to any new YouTube members.
Yes.
So we did that at the top of the show. And again, I want to thank Tim Prangley. I want to thank, where's my list here? Shoot, I've lost it. There was Dan Beast Media. There was DS. There was Jason O. There was Badgers, Bournemouth. So I want to thank all those original YouTube members here at the Voice of College Football. And again, the one on the undisputed national championship list, which is Craig Cope. But now we got some guy, John. I guess he decided to get a YouTube membership here. So I'm going to give him a bit of a shout out wherever he is. Hopefully he's listening.
Yeah, who's
some
that
John guy?
Yeah, and Exploring with Ben.
Exploring with Ben, yes.
Has joined the fold.
Who has been so extremely supportive. I just can't even say enough about Exploring with Ben and what he's done here. He's just adamant about, making sure everybody hits the like button. Everybody knows that they support the content and grab the Amazon link and all of it. So thank you so much for that, Ben.
Absolutely. So just so everybody knows, I tried to mentally prepare people in the chat.
Okay.
But we are going to be moving the herd when all the way over to another link. So I've put it right here. All you have to do is click the link, join us in like 2 minutes over there, and we're going to be doing normally the 8 p.m. block. It's going to be the 6 p.m. block today, and apparently some people want to do another panel. So we might be getting some panel together and talking hopefully some teams that we don't hear as much from. Always like to hear about Iowa. Always hoping that we get our Penn State buddy to be part of that, and any media folks that might want to call in. I gave them the link too, so they can call into the next block as well. So stay tuned.
Yeah. So everyone out there, you can blame me, but here's the deal. Full transparency here is that I need to leave, as I typically do. John takes over the show, or whomever is going to be the co-host, but it's been John for these several weeks. But since I started the show, I have to leave my my laptop on and keep everything running, but I'm not able to do that tonight. So everyone, please just stay right here on the channel. When we shut down here, John is going to be up and running within seconds and ready to roll. We'll let John get off here so he can get the other link started up. So just keep it locked in right here. We apologize for not having one continuous show, but it's going to be right
just
here
this week
on the channel.
Just this week.
Yes.
And
Jason, we appreciate you being here.
Yes,
Look at
thank you,
this.
Jason.
Here's
Jason has
another shout-out.
joined the YouTube membership club.
I don't know if you were around for this, John, but this is the way I used to welcome people that I did not see previously. If I noticed somebody new to the chat and I didn't know whether they'd been around for a long time or not, I used to do it like this. And then I used to have that long crane mic, which I still have. I just don't currently have it set up, but that kind of prohibited me from doing the full bore welcome. But we're going to get back to that. So Jason, for John, for exploring with Ben today. Welcome to the voice of college football.
Absolutely.
So Jason, thank you so much for that. I know I kid about Michigan and we get into it a little bit, but I appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir. Thanks, Jason. And Mark, without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and move over and join us over on the 6 p.m. block link here in just a second.
So it's going to, what? Should I keep going here for 30 seconds to a minute? Does that make sense? Is that what it's going to take you?
I already put the link in and everything.
Okay.
So
Absolutely.
Pop right over there.
All right, everyone. Appreciate you being here at the Voice of College Football. Again, keep it right here. Grab the link that John has provided. But even if you don't even see that link, if you keep it right here on the channel, this will be the next video that will be on the front page of the channel. So you can continue to talk Big Ten football right here at the Voice of College Football. And again, Jason, John, Exploring with Ben, thank you so much for your YouTube memberships. And it's with everything that's provided that you see listed on your membership. Join Tim and Matt tonight at 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific. Tim's filling in for me tonight at 11 Eastern on the USC live show. So join them on the USC channel over there. Appreciate y'all being here at the Voice of College Football. Be looking out for our next edition in our TV ratings series. We got the Big Ten coming up. We got the SEC, and then we're going to put it all together. And thanks so much for checking out those right here at the Voice of College Football. We will see you soon. And stay locked in right here to talk Big Ten football with John for the rest of the night.